So we'll welcome to this, the second of the live oracle. And tonight I want to discuss with you from a bridge of last week where we studied the mind, body, and the soul, a space of living in a deeper connected life. So last week I shared with you how important to work with the mind, body, and the soul is, and what that brings to us, a bridging from being living in the mind all day, that constant incessant chatter that takes us into our deep woundings and our inner child and all those places that are filled with trauma and fear and shame and all of those places, to the bridge of the breath that brings us into the body where there's a deeper stillness and a bit less chatter, and then to finally into feeling, and then to be able to come into a space in the soul. And so, if we're speaking about soul space and we're speaking about the soul, we're also beginning to come into the territory of how we live a deeper, more fulfilled life. Now, I think we can all claim that many of us are not living a soulful life, that we are still caught up in the matrix of working 9 to 5, paying our bills, paying all the taxes, paying for this, paying for that. And basically, we've become a slave to a system that really is about working and making ends meet. And we try to carve out a little bit of soul time. And as a result, the collective unconscious and the collective conscious is, as we see it, we are deeply in the throes of a societal decline, war, famine, catastrophic climatic change. And I don't think any of us are untouched by that. And I think this is all part of a space of human evolution and human consciousness that is really screaming from the highest mountain for us to change. I don't think until we as humans begin to connect to our soul at a much deeper level, like an extremely deeper level than we are right now, that we're going to see the world change as much as we would all hope. And I think that's going to take a level of evolution from individuals that are, and we can all hold our hands up again, contributing to the chaos in the collective. We have lost sight of what's important. We neglect family, we neglect soul space, sacred ritual, ceremony, connection, all for chasing matter and being able to survive in a society that has been constructed so that we thirst for matter and that we can't find a way out. So I don't want to be doom and gloom about it, but I'm also a deep realist and a Jungian who works with her own shadow and the shadow of the collective unconscious, and a deeper realization that things need to change. And I can be a catalyst of change. And I can also help other people be part of that change. So this is why I'm doing the live oracle. Much as the oracles of the past would operate, they would speak on impending disaster, impending danger, things that were going to impact people on an individual level, but more importantly, things that would impact society, individual communities. And that's where I feel my place really is in this work. Although I have many facets to the work that I do, I really deeply feel that there's a space where I'm a humanitarian and that I am really trying to be a catalyst of change and to bring people into that change too, so that their lives become richer and the world around us become richer. So, with that in our minds, I've cleaned the space, I've lit the candle, and I invite you all to do the same in this ritualistic space and to come into sacred space where you are not disturbed by the outer world. And part of last week's transmission was about finding a little ritualistic space in your life where you can come and connect to your soul, a space where you can connect to something deeper, and a space where that you just disconnect from the mind and the chaos of the outside world. So this is my space, this is my little room that's filled with all the things I love, the symbol of the roses behind me, my shamanic drums, my Black Madonnas, my Native American flute, my plants, my druid staff, all these things are around me in this room. And they contribute to the energy in which I deliver these teachings. So think about that space for yourself. What is in your environment right now that is contributing to a more sacred space? What items do you have around you, or could you place around you, that adds to a deeper space? One that connects to the plant world, one that connects to the mineral world, one that connects to the sacred spiritual. And I invite you to think about that, or if you already have that around you, to connect to that right now. So just take some really deep breaths. Let's take some breaths together to kind of come into a collective field. So those that are on this live, those that join later in the recording, we enter into liminal space where time is not appropriate here, where we gather collectively. And so the breath unites us, as we discovered last week. It also bridges the mind to the body. So find yourself just taking some deep breaths. I'm finding myself just shaking off from the day, from the problems that I've had in the day and the good things I've had in the day, just allowing myself to come into neutral space. And allowing that nervous system to relax with a few sighs or a And as I always begin in any sacred practice, just by connecting to your inhalation and your exhalation. And I'm closing my eyes with you because this is how I go inward. I'm just feeling that inhale and exhale as a sweet lullaby for the body, as a soothing practice, as a bridge between mind and body. And allow that breath to take you inward. Allow it to search inside the body. And as I seek my toes, because sometimes, as we find in the day, we're not really in our body, we're in our mind. We're in the actions that we're doing or the thoughts that we're having. I take the breath down to my feet and the bottom of my legs as a foundation for being in my body. And I'll allow the breath to creep all the way up the legs. And then my second stopping point for the breath is in my pelvic bowl. So I breathe into my sexual organs, I breathe into my anus, I breathe into the coccyx, into the very pelvic bowl that my soul sits in. And I take a deep breath there and I anchor into the breath in the pelvic bowl. And I just remember that this pelvic bowl is my safe space, that the pelvic bowl is an anchor into my deeper part of self and soul. And that I can really drop all my weight into the pelvic bowl and feel secure, safe, connected. And I stay there, but I allow the breath to move up my body into my chest, into my heart, into my shoulders, into my arms. I allow the breath to be felt in and out in the hands, in the neck, breath in the whole of the head, starting at the axis of the head. into the back of the cranium, to the amygdala, into the front of the forehead, into the all-seeing eye, the pineal gland. And then up to the very crown of the head, where the Sahasrara, the opening to the divine. And I just contain all of that breath within the body so that I feel embodied, so that I feel that the breath is the life and the life force within me. And my body's been awakened and I am saying hello, maybe for the first time, maybe if you've done any other practice today to be bodied, it's adding to it. But if this is the first, then just rejoice and celebrate being back in your body. Tell the mind now that it's not required to be the dominant one. And then just begin to invite in the white light. Remembering that the white light has no middleman, that it's not between you and a deity or a belief or a religion or any other middleman that's involved. This is straight to you and to Creator, to the beloved, to the divine, whichever name you choose to call it. And we're going direct to pull in healing light, to pull in a resonance that is a frequency that we can't really grasp, a frequency that we know contains healing and purity and peace and harmony. And we just allow that to come in all the words that it contains, known and unknown. And we let it fill the body, fast as lightning, Godspeed, jubilant in its reconnection with your whole physical body, your soul, yourself, your spirit, all parts of personality and all that you're made up of. And as your body fills with the white light, begin to already disperse that white light from the skin to the space around you, so that you're creating a sphere around your auric field of divine, harmonious, peaceful, purifying light. And as you stand in your field, I open up the directions to the north, to the south, to the east and the west, honouring all elements of earth, all totem animals, and to the gates of peace that lie within the directions and healing. And I cast an energetic circle around this space to protect us and hold us in pure light. And you all within your individual fields of white light and protection gather together in your own private space, inviting only the energy of the divine and yourself, no other. And it's from here that we come into the oracle and into a space that is about living a deeper connected life. So you can come back into the room that you're in and take a look around, still in that divine hold, still in the breath. And maybe you're going to receive tonight some things that you know and some things that you're unaware of, but some things that are coming back into the consciousness to allow you to be a witness to what might improve your connection. And so I want to begin this by just discussing that the world that we find ourselves in is one that is really in disharmony at the moment. And I shared that at the beginning of this transmission, not as a doom and gloom, but as a sharp reality of the times that we find ourselves in. And I don't believe that's all bad, to be honest. I really think that this time is necessary. We, as a world, cannot simply go on as we have been, and everything evolves. We hear this thing where somebody might say to another, "Well, you've changed." Well, I'm really glad that that person changed, because all things change, all things evolve. And if we're not in a cycle of evolution and change, then we're generally stuck. And I think we've been stuck in our collective for some time in kind of similar patterns. The same issues are coming up over and over again. We're seeing war and genocide, and we're seeing starvation, and we're seeing this huge rich and poor divide. We're seeing slavery, and I don't mean just from people who, are caught up in third worlds. I'm talking about slavery in the West, where men are and women are working constantly and can only afford the basic living costs. That is not thriving. That is not life. That is slavery, modern day slavery. And all of this time is trying to take us to an extreme so that we can all see it and we can all begin to change on an individual level. So I want to begin by talking about our fascination as humans as to how we have created what we see outside of ourselves, and the fascination with external things. So we can all say, absolutely, me included, to, every single thing I'm discussing tonight, is that we've all been caught in a trap of materialism. And we all still are, myself included again. So when I'm teaching this, I'm not saying that I am teaching from a point of I've cracked this and I'm not this. But these are things that I also recognize in myself that need to be changed. So materialism, I was reading something the other day, and I shared on my post a picture, this video of how we're caught up in this materialistic world that is seeking things like labeled clothes and, high-end cars and all those material things that are contributing to a world that is on the verge of catastrophic disaster. Our need for material things and new things when the old things still serve is one of the reasons this world is in the state it is. So that's something I've really been trying to hold myself accountable for. Where is it that I'm seeking material things still, and how can I kind of make do with what I've got, or not contribute to a world that's in mass production? I'm also aware of the fact that this involves dopamine hits. And this is something within my own field of psychology has been deeply working with my own dopamine hits, how we get the hit of high that takes us out of really feeling what we need to feel and making change. So that would be things like scrolling on Facebook, being on Instagram, gaming, you know, whatever it is that gives you a high that you're not aware of. Maybe you are aware of, and maybe you're trying to change that. So I just want you to think about that. And I'm going to number all these as well, so you have a clear framework of things that we can work at. I want you to think about the things that have been distracting you from your traumas and your wounds. And this can be kind of coined. I see a lot of people with addictions. So, a lot of people who drink too much, a lot of people who take drugs or shop or are addicted to the gym, things like that, as a way to avoid how they're really feeling and what their life is really like. And the way we can identify this is, say, for example, that you go to the gym all the time, and I've done this, and then take that away and see what comes up. See what comes up when you have to sit and not hit the gym or be focused on everything that you eat, or the fact you've got to go shopping, or that you need to drink that bottle of wine at night. So it's about identifying what is distracting you from your trauma. That could be your job. You might be working all the time as to distract yourself from what's going on inside and what you need to heal. I also really wanted to bring up the obsession that we've got with our external being, how thin we are, how fat we are, whether our eyebrows are, on trend, whether our breasts are big enough, whether our muscles are big enough, whether the bum is big enough, whether the teeth are white enough. All of these things are deep societal wounds at the moment because they are dragging us out of the internal world where we are obsessing with, can I lift this many weights? Can my bum get this bigger? Do my ears look too big? Is my wrinkles too much? All of those things are the signs of a deeply wounded society. Aging happens, the body falls into a natural state. I'm not talking about being unhealthy, but I'm not talking about the obsession that we're seeing in the external world about the way we look, and a whole movement of anti-aging and aesthetics that are not natural, that are affecting people's mental health, their physical health, and with an obsession that they're never good enough. So that was another thing I wanted to bring up. And then the last thing with the things that are externally taking us out of the internal world is doing things that really don't support us. And these are all things that I've been looking at in my own psyche. Like, what of these things? Where am I still obsessed with the way I look? Like, where is my obsession with dopamine hits? And this one was really important for me, is doing things that really don't matter. So I'm going to confess that I'm a bit of a clean freak and had a very strict regime of cleaning. It made me feel good. It makes me feel energetically clean. But I realized that to some point that when it was sacrificed over something else that really mattered, then it wasn't supporting me. So I want you to think about the things that are not supporting you, where you're spending time on things that don't really matter. So I did some work with a guy that was just obsessed with his car, and he constantly was hoovering and cleaning the car and fixing the car and reading on the car. It was a diversion of going deeper in. The car was symbolic. So the car is, in Jungian framework, is symbolic for the way we move through life. And this car was all about what it looked like, and it was all about the material, and it really wasn't taking him anywhere. So wherever we're obsessing over is symbolic. And I'm going to have to leave you to think about that one, because the cleaning thing was deeply symbolic for me. I was trying to cleanse, purify, change energy. So have a think about that. So I'm just going to cap those things for you so you've got them, so you can work obviously after this call on them. So that was number one, things that are taking us external and not internal. That is materialism, dopamine hits, distracting from trauma and wounds and healing, obsessing about the way we look, again, external, and then doing things that don't really matter to us. So I wanted to set them as the precedent for things that we might be spending a lot of time on, and then wondering why we don't feel fulfilled. And so, yeah, thanks, Rachel, for that. Rachel's just added into the chat that I found that the clean freak space I had because I always wanted to achieve and get great outcomes as opposed to enjoying doing nothing and accepted a space of nothing. I can testify that that was part of it too for me, for sure. It held me in a space of doing constantly. So yeah, thank you for that. So these are great ways to move into, okay, what Rachel's just highlighted is that space of enjoying doing nothing. Now there's space for that in going inward, because sometimes when we're doing nothing, we have no option but to face the inner world. So that's a great lead into me being able to go through now things that I found through my research, through my work with people, through my training, what allows us to have a deeper connected life, what makes us feel more fulfilled, what gives us an internal feeling that cannot be bought or hit by dopamine. Well, it can, but in a different way. And what isn't external and in the material world. So I want to say the first thing that I wanted to highlight here was understanding that the mind, the body, and the soul and the spirit are part of us as a human. So that's number one. And we looked at that last week on how important it is to understand that we are not just a mind, we are not just a body, and we're not just a soul, and we're not just a spirit, but we're all of that. And that makes us multifaceted. And it also gives us much to feel into as being this multidimensional being rather than I'm just Colette Corcoran, which can be very 2D and very flat. So when we start seeing ourselves as these other things, let's begin with mind, body, and soul, it begins to open us up to a deeper level of inquiry that takes us inward. And I've seen this at least 1,000 times in the years that I've been teaching yoga, for example. I have met people that have come to my space and said, I'm not spiritual, I am not interested, I am here purely to get physically flexible. And within 6 weeks, they're chanting Om and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know I had a soul and something's happening to me. It's inevitable that at some point in somebody's life that they will begin to experience that they're more than just a mind and a body, even if they've recognized that they're a body, you know. So that's fundamental. And then I'm just going to take that a little bit higher in by saying that they were the kind of things that I worked on for many years, mind, body, soul. And then when I was initiated into the Jungian work, I realized there was much more than that as well. Like there was persona, there was shadow, there were personality complexes, there were archetypes. And then I was completely blown away and thought, wow, I don't even know myself. Like, I don't know my capabilities and what I can find out about myself that would lead me to a deeply more kind of embodied life. So that's number one. And I know I'm sorry if I'm like dipping you in a deep ocean and then coming back out, but I want to be quite conclusive tonight with a list and then hopefully within the oracle, we can go into many of these different facets. So the second is believing that there is something bigger than us. Now, I really hate to name this, but usually I use the word God because God is known by people. But I love some other terms for this, such as the beloved, the one mind. I've heard that, which is beautiful. The divine, the universe, not so keen on that. But there is many words that people use to coin it. Mother Earth, beautiful Pachamama, Gaia. So whatever it is we name it as that's comfortable for us is a really important step to living deeper. Now, I was kind of, you know, I've read a lot of research on this that people who are connected to a bigger picture, say a religion or a belief system or a spiritual system, have much healthier mental health states. They're filled with a much deeper sense of purpose. And I truly, truly believe that. I think what I've witnessed over the years in working with people in spirituality is when they have come to some understanding that there's something bigger, lots of things change for them and they realize that life is not 2D and that there's a much like 3D, 4D, 5D even aspect to living and there's much more to discover that opens them up and makes a deeper quest open for life. So I'm going to coin in this word God or beloved or Mother Earth, if we've got in the chat. Also, the word the unseen. So the unseen realms also really bring this deeper feeling of connection. I know that many of us as children believed in unicorns and the fairy world and the magic of monsters and trolls and all of those things. And this belief system that there is other things that we cannot see with our eyes really begins to open up a world of magic that brings us into a deeper inquiry as well. And I know for one, I've had deep experience with plant medicine in the jungle in Peru and in other places where I have seen these beings, and I know that other people have had experience of that. And I believe that they live in the unconscious and that we have to go there to be able to experience them. And with my own work with druidry and shamanism, that the other realm is so important to this realm in that we are offered healing from the other side, that we're given information from the other realm, and that we are given deep, deep galactic cosmic wisdom when we open up to something bigger. So again, I'm sorry for dropping you in the cosmos and bringing you back out, but that's number 2. So number 3 is, for me, coming into the thought of healing. And this again is a deep personal space that I have gone on and that I have witnessed with people and that I've helped people with. And that is knowing that many of us have had lives that is, to say the least, challenging, that we've all faced suffering in some way, and that we all have a story of suffering, of trauma, of wounds, of things that we regret. And that from those things, there is a deep place that healing happens, and happens for a reason. Now, some of these things happen to us that are deeply tragic and take us on a journey that we did not expect to happen. So traumatic experiences open us deeper. They actually do open us deeper. They cut open the body and leave our soul exposed. They take us through deep emotions and feelings that we'd never experienced before, being on a more surface level. Things like traumatic childhoods or dealing with the way you've been brought up or treated by an ex-partner are deep invitations to know yourself better, to understand human behavior, and to be able to say, these things happen to me, but if I heal from them, they will take me to an even better space. So this third thing I coined as feeling is healing, because all of these things make us feel. They all take us into a deep space of feeling. They take us out the head and they bring us into a feeling that touches the soul. If you've ever experienced deep grief, then I'm quite sure that you're aware of the soul. Because something happens that cracks us open in deep grief that we can't quite explain to another. And I always think when the words fail us through experiences, then we're in that inner, deeper journey that is unexplainable. I also believe that the healing journey for me, in seeking healing and therapy and psychoanalysis and Jungian analysis, has really kind of made life magic. It has brought a new perspective about life. It has allowed me to enter into deeper states of compassion and feeling and understanding of other human beings. So I really wanted to share that, about knowing that some of our greatest sufferings, if we don't enter into the realms of the bitterness and victimization and just being in cycles and loops of suffering, that we come out of them, that we heal them, that we ride the waves of that journey, can take us to a new place in our lives. And I know that led for me, which is to my fourth place, into spiritual practice. So in dealing with my own kind of demons and sufferings, it led me to sit on a yoga mat, and that changed me, because I do believe that the inner journey and living a more deeply connected life means we need to seek practices that allow us to do exactly that. So things like somatic movement, yoga, things that enter into like the realms of, you know, coming into a deeper sense of bigness, that there's spirit, that there's soul, that there's feelings, that there's something bigger. I heard the other day of, which was new to me, like sand play, and that's a Jungian concept that people heal through creating images with sand, and then that took me to think about my own recent experience working with mandala, and how that really helped me come into a deeper spiritual connection through creating mandala and mandala art. Also, you know, anything that works with the nervous system or the mind, to soothe the mind, like hypnosis. And, you know, you probably all have a list of them longer than I do. But anything that will commit us to a spiritual practice is life changing and takes us into a deeper connection of life. I don't think over the last 25 years I've ever been out of a course. I've been in one course after another, and that's because I find great wealth in being in some kind of sacred practice, whether that's like my druid practice or Jungian psychoanalytical practice or dream practice, you know, whatever it is, allows me to live a deeper life. So I want you to mark that down as to which practice are you engaged in that allows you to come into a deeper connected way of living. Okay, and then we're going to go on to the next one. And I've numbered these all wrong, so I need to count. So this is number 5, which is nature connection. So it has been spoken about from the beginning of time by the ancients, by nearly all lineages, that our connection to Mother Earth, to nature, to Gaia, to Pachamama is the one thing that will allow us to thrive as human beings. And I posted only yesterday that the further that we move away from nature, the further we move away from Mother Earth, the more dysfunctional we become and the iller we become. Now, I'm not saying you need acres of land. That isn't how we need to connect to nature. Nature can be connected to in pot plants, can be going for walks in the lakes, can be putting your feet in the earth. It can be going to the woods at the weekend, to the seaside, to the beach, going to a tropical place. Whatever it is that you can do will really help you connect to nature. Even in the cities, there is space for you to be able to connect to nature. And I do see in society more of a disconnection. You know, I used to work in inner cities with children, and some of those children have not seen anywhere that has nature. They've not been to the seaside. They've never experienced what it's like to be in a field. They're not allowed to get dirty. They're brought up in grey houses with plastic grass. And I've got to admit, like, I see that more and more. And it's deeply, deeply concerning for me that we are removing ourselves from nature. When I lived in the city, I would try at weekends to go walking in the Lake District and by the lakes and the rivers, just reconnect, because it's made from the very things that we're made of, and we need that time in nature. So ask yourself, how do I connect to nature? Today, for me, I've had a day at the computer, feeling very disconnected after being online, and then just went out, took my shoes off in the pouring rain, stood in the rain for 5 minutes, went and sat by the waterfall and came back in. And it wasn't hours, it was 10 minutes, and it was enough to just make me feel reconnected and in a deep space. So invite that to be on your list. And I'm well aware that the time is clicking, and I have a big list here. So I'm going to try and get through as many as I can so that I'm leaving you with food for thought, really, to just sit with this list after the call and to say, maybe these are the things that's missing in my life that could give me a deeper connection and more fulfillment. So this leads me to number 8, not number 8, we're on number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is community and relationships. So I've been thinking about this a lot recently, about community and how we access our community. And I was reading a book at my lunch today that was talking about the world as it goes into a deeper state of collapse and how important community will be. And I want you to think about that, no matter what your situation, as to who is the community around you. Are you connected to it? If not, why? What is the kind of community you would like and would love to be connected to? And if it's not available, how do you create it? I think this is going to be key because community is key for successful society. It's key for harmonious, peaceful, loving, compassionate, enriching society. And so this has to come on the list somewhere where we begin to think about our community and our connection to it and our giving to community or creation of it. And that almost directly spills into relationships. So think about the current relationships that you have around you, and that goes with your partner, maybe your children, friends. What are those relationships like? And a really good reset here is to think about that relationship on a scale of 1 to 10 as to how connecting it is, how fulfilling it is, how soul filling it is. I'm not saying happy and great because sometimes relationships can be difficult. And part of that's part of healing and working through that. But be radically honest about the people that you spend your time with, about how fulfilling that is and how much common goals you share and ideologies and depth, really. And it's a good place to put a list together of those that you spend time with. They say you're most like the 3 people you spend the most time with. That can be quite worrying. And so choosing that those 3 people might not be what you perfectly want, but then that's a mirror of self-reflection to be able to say, I need to change in these ways, because then the people around me will reflect that too. And that feeds into number 7, which is joy. If we're not around people and community that is good for us, then joy is probably very limited. And I mean joy in the type of, joy that's about dancing and singing and celebrating and creativity and connection and doing things that are inspiring and brilliant together. So, how much of that do you get? When was the last time you danced? When was the last time you sang at the top of your chest? What was the last time that you belly laughed? When was the last time you had fun and felt joy? And I think that is really vital in even difficult times, especially times that are challenging for us personally. And it's the last, kind of the least time we want to do that, but probably the most beneficial of times if we're having a really difficult time is to just get out and have a laugh, to go out and dance. And that for me is also a place that feels fulfilled. You know, if I'm being creative or I'm laughing and joking, I get that sense of soul. But so do I when I come to number 8, which is about ritual and ceremony. And I can't speak about this enough, really. I could write a whole course on ritual and ceremony, and I am a deep ritualist and ceremonial woman. And again, all of psychoanalysis shows that during the ancient times, we were deep ceremonial people, and we still are to some effect. So if you think about things like Christmas and New Year's and Easter, they're all ceremonial times from ancient times gone, and they've adapted and changed. But there's a lot more than just those big kind of commercial celebrations that we have. We call them celebrations now, but they are ceremonies. Think about the rituals that are in place in those ceremonies. Like, for example, Christmas. What are your rituals? We have a ritual on Christmas Eve where we buy secondhand books and read and eat chocolate together. We wake up, we have the same kind of ritualistic breakfast. What are your rituals and what are your ceremonies? I really hope that I'd pass my son down an extensive list of those things that he could take onto his family and that maybe he got rid of some and he changed some. That would be down to him. But that I was ritualistic and ceremonial. And this is why within my spiritual work, I really love to celebrate the eclipses and the solstice and all of those things that the ancient me remembers, that these were significant events in a world that was not consumed by commercialism, and the fact that my new shoes make me much more happier than the fire on Semaine or that kind of thing. So I want you to think about in your own family unit, your own life, how connected are you to ceremony and the rituals that are involved with those ceremonies? And indeed, how can you include more? And as you ponder on that, just think about how those ceremonies or celebrations that we have now make you feel. Think about the wonder of Christmas. Think about the joy of Easter, all of those things which are common to us. I mean, people celebrate Christmas who aren't religion. It's an ancient Celtic celebration. The Celts were the first people to put the tree up. And so think about all of those ceremonies and how they make us feel as a society. They bring great joy. They bring a collaboration. They bring mutual happiness and celebration together. That they do serve a very deep role in society. And we need a lot more. And they don't all have to include spending a whole lot of money or, you know, taking mass amounts of time off. They can be a ritual in the garden, they can be a ceremony in the evening. And so I've been really trying to work hard on bringing these back into my life. And so that the energy is felt within the home and hopefully within the community. So that's a big one that I'd love to share more on, and from all the great inspirations that I've worked with and been inspired by, especially Marion Woodman. If any of you have read her books, she's an amazing writer, superb, role model for the feminine, and she spoke a lot and wrote a lot on the benefits of ceremony and ritual within society, and especially for women. So yeah, ceremony is really, really a big one. And I can see one of the comments that says, makes me feel steady, grounded, intentionally creating days, knowing where I am, who I am, where I'm going, having some control over, what I'm doing day to day. I think, Rachel, that you've put that in, and it's really potent because yeah, it makes us feel supported. We don't have to like control everything else. Imagine if we have a framework of like ceremony and ritual, and we weave amongst that, then that stops the head kind of dominating. Oh, what am I going, where I'm doing, life so boring, there's nothing to do, oh, I'm at a loss and I'm down. It really does, as you say, nourish us. And actually, my next point that I was going on to, and this is something I work deeply with people in one-to-one sessions, is structure. To feel deeply fulfilled and deeply connected to life, we need to have some sort of structure. And I was saying this around the dinner table the other evening to friends that had come round, that this person had said to me that it was really sad that, working for her own self, she found impossible because she couldn't contain and maintain a structure. And I was saying that's really sad. And this is why we in society have been working for others in this slave system I commented on at the beginning, because we're unable to direct ourselves and structure ourselves. And once we learn the foundations of self structure, so for years, I was structured by the ringing of a bell because I was a school teacher. I knew when to start because I was told to start at 9. I knew I finished at this time. I knew my lunch was a ding, 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 a bell went. And then the same happened within the construct of, say, the ashrams. The ashrams that I visited, the structure was there. There was time that we fasted. There was time that we came into sacred practice. There was time that we cleaned. There was time that we helped the community. And I realized that structure was super important for allowing a direction in our life. And that's where ceremony and ritual comes into. If I know through the year I've got these certain ceremonies and structures, I've always got something that my soul is looking forward to. It's set in. And so I want you to think about your own life and who structures it. Is that a workplace that structures it? Do you need a establishment to structure you? What are you like structuring you? Are you functioning at a level that is disorganized and chaotic? Because that's not going to make you feel fulfilled or be able to, you know, function at a higher level. And I must admit that the majority of people I get coming for sessions are generally very unstructured. They haven't nailed the I'm going to be self-disciplined and get up at 9, at 8 and work at 9, and then I'm going to finish at 5, and then I'm going to take a lunch break. They tend to kind of like meander. And meandering is really kind of difficult when we're trying to feel a deep sense of fulfillment and soul. And within the structure of society that we live in, it's really quite difficult to live in that way. So I want you to think about your daily structure. Is how high functioning is that? Does it account for things like spiritual practice? As Rachel said at the beginning, doing nothing and then doing something. What do you want to fit in your life? I want more joy, I want more creativity, brilliant, but then you do not structure it in your day. It's not going to come into fruition. So think about your structure, think about the things that your soul desires, the things that you want, and ask yourself, are you making space for them? Are they within the structure of your day? And if not, how can you structure them in? This is about balancing in that structure work and play, seriousness and, just like happiness and joy and just being like comical and, fun. Gratitude, space for gratitude, but also space for moaning because we're humans, we like to moan, and then we should balance that by gratitude. So within the structure, I really wanted you to think about balance. What's the balance that you have within the structure? And then finally, just nearly on time, had to go extra fast to get all of this in, is that bigger question. Have a greater sense of purpose. And this actually sits on all of those things I've talked about. Understanding mind, body, and soul, God or the greater picture, healing, spiritual practice, nature connection, community relationships, joy, dancing, singing, ritual and ceremony, structure. I believe that born from those things, a space comes for a greater sense of purpose. If we're experiencing ceremony and ritual, nature connection, if we've got a great community around us and we're in really beautiful relationships and we're connecting to the mind, body, and soul, and we've got God and the beloved and all of those things, imagine how hard it must be to actually contain a sense of purpose. So we're all seeking this sense of purpose. We all want to have a greater purpose. We all have this, like, I do. I burst with it every morning. I wake up and I'm like, I have this deep sense of greater purpose. And it keeps me alive, even when times are difficult. I've had great suffering. I've had really big stuff to heal. But there's this thing inside of me that is sense of purpose. And I know that that was born from many of those things I've shared with you this evening. And it comes up in all of it, in every single one of them. If I'm in great community, then we get a sense of purpose together. If I'm in ritual and ceremony, then I'm like, wow, this is making me feel like I've got deep purpose. This solstice is great. This is why I am alive. And it comes through it all. So I put that together very quickly today because I really knew that there was this space that all of these things can be enjoyed by all of you. And this could be a working list that you work through and say, okay, yeah, I need more of that in my life. And yeah, I'm going to make time for this in my life. And this is what I'm hoping from these Oracle recordings, that the first few will be like this kind of teaching, and then hopefully we'll come into more discussion and we'll gather a virtual community together where we can talk about these things, where we can share about these things, where even at a distance we can form a mini community within our lives that's deeply supportive and connective. So I just wanted to say that. And also anything that you might like to offer here, you can unmute your microphone and just share whatever comes. I'm just opening up that space and opportunity for anyone that'd like to. Everyone's quite shy. Rachel, yay.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. Really, really lovely session. And I
Oh,
really enjoyed everything that you said. It really resonated with me. So thanks, Colette.
no, you're welcome. And, I know you're in a big transition yourself, Rachel. So hope this is all just transferable. You're going to take it with you as you go.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But let's stay connected within this community if that's possible. Yeah. Thank you. So, yeah, thank you all for joining me, those that are present and those that join this later on. I really felt appreciative, to all the people that took this as a recording on the last session. I know that's just how it is with some of our places in the world. So, thank you all very much. And I'm looking forward to seeing you all again next week. There will be space next week for some discussion on the following topic or anything that you might have integrated. So, bye for now.